Yeah.
And I think that's going to be interesting challenge for Nathaniel Hackett. I do think that if he does not get Aaron Rodgers to the Broncos, I think that's going to be a failure of a higher rate.
Well, we talked quite a bit about the Raiders, so should we move on to the Broncos now at this point? Now, I will say this. The interesting thing about Nathaniel Hackett, again, Aaron Rodgers really likes him. But here's the thing. Here's the flip side of that conversation, though. The Broncos had one of the better defenses in the league, right?
Yep.
With Vic Fangio.
Yeah.
He's gone, And so how is their defense going to stack up? And the funny thing is, I really thought that they did very well with kind of a ragtag group of folks on the defensive side of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you're going to be focusing on offense, but where's your defense going to sit at that point, right?
Yep.
I mean, perfect example, the Chargers, they were 6th ranked offense in the league, but almost dead last on defense, right?
Yeah.
And so you kind of got to have both. And so it'll be really interesting to see how they kind of work the defensive side of the ball on the Broncos side.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. And one thing that one of my friends is a Broncos fan pointed out, he said this is the first year in like 30 years or something like that the Broncos have not had one player in the Pro Bowl.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, that's kind of weird to think about because they had a really good defense this year.
They really
it was kind of a second half type of defense for them
Mm-hmm.
where they figured things out really, really well. But that's a really odd thing to be able to say that. But that's a pretty good defensive setup with the Broncos. Now, hopefully now you got an offensive coordinator-minded based coach because that's been their issue for the longest period of time is getting a quarterback situated there.
Yeah.
And really just having a good, solid, basically offensive setup on their team. And I think that's going to be interesting challenge for Nathaniel Hackett. I do think that if he does not get Aaron Rodgers to the Broncos, I think that's going to be a failure of a hire right then and there. Because I think that was the key reason why they hired him.
Mm-hmm.
You better get him to get him to the Broncos immediately because that's why we hired you. And now that's a splash situation. I mean, you got to probably pay out a lot for him. I mean, just like what we were talking about earlier in the day is that how much would it cost to get Aaron Rodgers here? I mean, he's got 2 years left on his contracts.
Yeah.
I mean, what is that going to look like?
Yeah.
I mean,
because they would have to pay like part of that contract to get him over to a different team, right? Or the Green Bay would actually have to pay part of it too. Like, I don't know what that whole Moneyball situation, how that would actually work, right?
You can talk about that Carson Wentz trade, right?
Yeah.
So they got what? It was initially a second, a third, but he ended up playing. So it was moved up to a first round pick because he played most of the snaps.
Yeah. So basically, since he played about 75% of the snaps, basically the second ended up going to a first round pick. So basically, they took the Colts pick, first round pick on that. I mean, and mind you, Carson Wentz is not the same as Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, no, that's not at all.
That's not a good comparison. I'm just saying that, hey, they gave up basically a first and a third to be able to get Carson Wentz, and he's not Aaron Rodgers. So Aaron Rodgers, I think he should win the MVP this year.
Oh yeah.
I think he did fantastic this year.
Yeah. Despite not going to the Super Bowl, that doesn't necessarily mean that he can't be the league MVP.
No, of course.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
and I think
and Aaron has also been very vocal about what he wants. Right? He wants Devontae Adams to come with him. He wants who's this other guy? Marquez Valdez-Scantling as well.
Yep.
Look, whoever. Again, it goes back to which team wants to make a big enough splash, right? You got to wonder. Heck, maybe the Raiders steps in and says, "No, we want them. We're willing to take everybody. Send Derek Carr to Green Bay." I mean, who knows, right? I really think it will be an interesting situation across the board to see what really happens with the Broncos. But I think to your point, I think the reason why he was hired is to get Aaron Rodgers, right? So if they don't get Rodgers, then clearly it's an immediate fail right out of the gate. And it would almost make the playoff picture have to be realigned or reassessed somehow too, right? Because not all 4 teams can. Well, they, I guess theoretically could go to the playoffs, right? But
yeah,
I mean, it would bring up a question of, wait a minute, like this isn't fair that these teams are so stacked, you know, and how do you really make that work, right? And you know, in a fair manner, you know. So
let's talk about the Broncos free agents and salary cap situation. So they got $40 million in cap space estimated, but then and $11 million in 2021 rollover. So they got plenty of cash to spend. I think it's actually second to us, the Chargers, actually, and how much they can spend and what budget they got. So, but as far as their current free agents go, they have 27 players that are on the chopping block, essentially.
Okay.
Of those players, like the top ones would be Kyle Fuller, Melvin Gordon. So that's kind of an interesting one. So there you go. He's going to have some contract woes again. Like hopefully he's not trying to go for like some Ezekiel Elliott contract again, like he did with us. So
for sure.
Yeah. And Bryce Callahan, Kareem Jackson, Teddy Bridgewater. So they do need a quarterback over there. So it's just I feel like, you know, they really got to go for Aaron Rodgers. Like, you know, it's letting these people but the problem is though too is that like those are kind of like their premier defensive players that they're losing for the most part. Like they're losing a lot on their defense, and so that's what could have made the Fangio look really good, because I mean, and that's all passing, you know, so covers the wide receivers, covers the back end. So I mean, I'm not exactly sure what their priorities are going to be in the offseason. The quarterback's definitely got to be one, and obviously some the backs on the defensive side. So, and they got plenty of money to spend. You know, they're going to be a completely different team, just like we are next year.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
You know, the interesting thing is though, even for them to be able to get, say, Devontae Adams over to the Broncos. What's interesting about the Broncos, they randomly signed Cortland Sutton to like kind of a bigger contract there. They also signed, I think it was Tim Patrick, I think, that they ended up signing to like a bigger contract. So like 2 of their like wide receivers, for some reason, they ended up signing big contracts to them. And it was kind of a very out of the blue like choice. Now, mind you, like for instance, Cortland Sutton is like 12 million, cap numbers 13.2 million. Tim Patrick 9.2 million. Like those are kind of like bigger contracts for guys that are like good.
Yeah.
But just like out of the blue, like I mean, you probably could have just not signed those contracts and give them those bigger contract or dollar figures for those 2 wide receivers. But I mean, to be able to bring in a guy like, for instance, I mean, who we're talking about here is you know, Devontae Adams. I mean, that's not going to be a small contract by any means. I mean, that's in the 20 millions, in my opinion, where you're going to have to pay that guy. Now, the thing is that Devontae Adams still could get tagged by the Packers, and there's a lot of talk that that's what's possibly going to happen. Now, still, when you tag somebody, you could still trade the guy too to try to get something out of them, because maybe the Packers are going to look to rebuild. I know Aaron Rodgers said that he doesn't want to rebuild.
Yeah.
So, and he doesn't want to be on a rebuilding team. So who knows? I mean, it is very hypothetical, you know, ideas of what could happen here, but I mean, it would be wild to just see Aaron Rodgers at the Broncos, and even to get Devontae Adams over there would be incredibly. That would be something else.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that division. You got Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Aaron Rodgers,
and then maybe
Derek Carr.
And then maybe Deshaun Watson.
Maybe Deshaun Watson, right? Yeah. And I mean, are you kidding me? Right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, that's just ridiculous. I mean, it's okay. You know, every single game in the AFC West is going to be competitive, and it's just going to be nuts. I think to wrap up, you know, the future's bright. You know, watch these videos, guys. Definitely subscribe. And, you know, Bull Bros are here for you.
That's right.
Here you go. Bull Bros, baby.
Bull Bros.